jealousy is cruel as the grave. And he was a man that lived on jealousy for 70 years, and he suffers from that desperately. And people call him old and querulous and whatever.
Before his death, Anthony Quinn shocked Hollywood by naming the 5 stars he hated most. These weren't minor actors or passing acquaintances. These were some of the biggest legends of the Golden Age. Behind the charm and the Oscars, Quinn carried decades of grudges, fueled by betrayals, clashing egos, and explosive rivalries. And the names on his list? Some will leave you stunned. From screen icons to powerful directors, no one was safe from Quinn's brutally honest confessions. But why did he hold on to this bitterness until the very end? And what do these grudges reveal about the darker side of Hollywood's golden years? Stay with us as we uncover the 5 stars Anthony Quinn despised most. And don't forget to subscribe before we dive in, because this is a story you won't want to miss. Anthony Quinn wasn't just another actor swept up in Hollywood's machine. He was one of the most versatile performers of the 20th century. Born in 1915 to Mexican and Irish parents, Quinn carved out a career that spanned decades, winning 2 Academy Awards and leaving his mark in classics like Viva Zapata, La Strada, and Zorba the Greek. He was celebrated for bringing raw intensity and emotional depth to his characters, often portraying men caught between tradition and change, strength and vulnerability. Audiences adored him for the fiery energy he brought to every performance. But behind that charisma, Quinn had a reputation for being brutally honest, fiercely protective of his craft, and unwilling to bow to Hollywood politics. Unlike many stars who played the game to keep their career safe, Quinn spoke his mind, even if it meant making powerful enemies. His sharp tongue and unfiltered opinions made him a polarizing figure in the industry, but also a deeply respected one. That's what makes his deathbed confessions so fascinating. In an industry where grudges were often buried under fake smiles and red carpet handshakes, Quinn didn't hold back. He named names. He exposed the rivalries, the betrayals, and the egos that defined his time in Hollywood. These weren't petty complaints. They were raw admissions from a man who had spent decades in the trenches of the film world. And while some might dismiss his words as bitterness, others see them as rare honesty in a world built on illusion. Quinn's revelations pull back the curtain on an industry that thrived on secrets, proving that even legends carried scars from their battles. But who made the list? And why did these conflicts cut so deep? Let's start with the most infamous feud of them all, Anthony Quinn versus Marlon Brando. When it came to Anthony Quinn's grudges, none burned hotter than his rivalry with Marlon Brando. To fans, both men were titans of acting, celebrated for their ability to transform a role into something unforgettable. But to Quinn, Brando wasn't a fellow genius. He was a chaotic force who embodied everything he despised about Hollywood arrogance. The two first crossed paths in the early 1950s, when Brando was already shaking the industry with a streetcar named Desire. He was hailed as the pioneer of method acting, famous for his unpredictability, raw energy, and improvisation. Directors adored him for bringing electricity to the screen, but to Quinn, this genius came at the expense of professionalism. Brando was known to arrive late, rewrite lines on the spot, or simply refuse to follow the script. Quinn, who valued discipline and structure, saw this as nothing short of disrespect, not just to the craft, but to everyone else on set who depended on consistency. There are countless stories of their tension. Crew members whispered about the icy silences that fell when the two shared the stage. Quinn prided himself on preparation, but Brando thrived on chaos, improvising dialogue, and throwing off rehearsed rhythms. For Brando, this was the pursuit of truth in acting. For Quinn, it was selfishness disguised as artistry. He once complained privately that working with Brando was like playing chess against someone who keeps changing the rules. Their feud wasn't limited to film sets. Gossip columns in Hollywood picked up on their animosity, amplifying every clash into headline drama. And while the tabloids thrived on painting them as rivals for the crown of greatest actor of their generation, there was truth behind the spin. Both men were deeply competitive, and Brando's fame often overshadowed Quinn's own achievements. That sting only deepened Quinn's resentment. Still, it wasn't all hate. Beneath the bitterness, Quinn admitted to admiring Brando's brilliance. He couldn't deny the impact Brando had on cinema, just as Brando grudgingly acknowledged Quinn's power on screen. But admiration never softened their conflict, it only sharpened it. This rivalry revealed the clash of two philosophies. Brando believed in raw spontaneity, Quinn believed in discipline. And when those worlds collided, sparks flew. But Brando wasn't the only star who fueled Quinn's fury. Another legend, perhaps even more iconic, clashed with him not just over style, but over politics and identity. That man was John Wayne. If Marlon Brando represented everything Anthony Quinn hated about chaos in acting, John Wayne represented something even deeper. A clash of ideology, identity, and what it truly meant to be an American hero. On the surface, the two had little in common. Wayne was the Duke, a towering figure of rugged conservatism, beloved for his roles in westerns like The Searchers and True Grit. He embodied a straightforward brand of masculinity. Stoic, patriotic, uncompromising. Anthony Quinn, by contrast, was the fiery outsider, proud of his Mexican and Irish roots, carrying himself with passion, rebellion, and intensity. To Wayne, Quinn's defiance was threatening. To Quinn, Wayne's rigidity was suffocating. Their feud played out against the backdrop of mid-20th century Hollywood, when politics seeped into every corner of the industry. Wayne was fiercely conservative, an outspoken critic of communism and a defender of traditional American values. He chaired the Motion Picture Alliance for the Preservation of American Ideals and didn't hesitate to call out anyone he saw as un-American. Quinn, meanwhile, leaned toward progressive ideals and embraced his role as a disruptor. He wasn't afraid to challenge authority, push boundaries, or speak openly about inequality in Hollywood. The result? Every interaction between them simmered with tension. Industry insiders recalled fiery disagreements whenever they crossed paths, at social gatherings, on sets, and even at award ceremonies. Wayne's blunt, dominating personality clashed hard with Quinn's emotional, impulsive energy. To make matters worse, they represented different visions of masculinity on screen. Wayne's heroes were stoic and certain, while Quinn's characters wrestled with inner conflict, cultural identity, and moral ambiguity. Audiences may not have realized it, but their rivalry symbolized a much larger cultural battle playing out in America itself. Hollywood gossip columns were quick to amplify the tension. Stories of arguments, of snide remarks, and professional cold shoulders kept fans intrigued. Some even speculated that the studios fueled the rivalry intentionally, knowing it added drama to the stars' public personas. But beneath the media spin was genuine animosity. Wayne saw Quinn as unpredictable and too rebellious, while Quinn viewed Wayne as the embodiment of an outdated Hollywood, clinging to traditions and shutting out diversity. Yet, as bitter as it was, there was also grudging respect. Both men recognized each other's star power and contributions to cinema. But respect didn't erase rivalry, it only made it more explosive. And if Quinn thought Wayne was difficult to handle, he had no idea the turbulence that awaited him when he stepped onto set with Hollywood's most dazzling queen, Elizabeth Taylor. If Anthony Quinn's conflicts with Brando and Wayne were about ego and ideology, his feud with Elizabeth Taylor was something else entirely. Two larger-than-life personalities colliding in the most combustible way. Taylor, the violet-eyed queen of Hollywood, was the definition of star power. She commanded the screen in Cleopatra, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and she carried herself off-screen with equal force. Known for her meticulous preparation and perfectionist standards, Taylor expected absolute professionalism from her co-stars. Quinn, on the other hand, was all fire and instinct. He thrived on emotional spontaneity, diving into scenes with raw energy and improvisation. This approach made him magnetic on screen, but it also made him unpredictable, a trait that clashed with Taylor's demand for control. When the two shared projects, the chemistry was undeniable, but behind the camera, the atmosphere could turn volatile. Taylor reportedly grew frustrated with Quinn's willingness to break from the script in search of authenticity, while Quinn bristled at Taylor's insistence on sticking to rehearsed beats. Their battle wasn't just artistic, it was about dominance. Both actors had reputations for commanding attention, both on set and in the press. Crew members recalled tense silences when neither was willing to yield, and heated debates over how a scene should be played. One insider from the Sandpiper in 1965 claimed that their clashing personalities created a stormy electricity that was as exhausting for the crew as it was thrilling for the audience. But that's the paradox. The very friction that made their working relationship so difficult also fueled unforgettable performances. Taylor's star power also threatened Quinn's ego. She was, without question, Hollywood royalty, and her presence often overshadowed even the most commanding male leads. For a proud and fiery actor like Quinn, playing opposite Taylor meant competing not just for screen space, but for cultural dominance. And Quinn wasn't the kind of man to quietly step aside. Still, despite the conflicts, both recognized the other's brilliance. Their partnerships were challenging but unforgettable, proof that sometimes the most difficult pairings produce the most powerful results. But while Taylor tested his patience, one director went even further, pushing Quinn into battles over control, artistry, and pride that nearly derailed entire productions. That man was Otto Preminger. If Anthony Quinn's feuds with actors were stormy, his battles with Otto Preminger reached another level entirely. Preminger was one of Hollywood's most notorious directors, brilliant, innovative, but also infamous for his iron-fisted control. He believed filmmaking was a dictatorship, and on his sets, there was only one vision that mattered, his own. For most actors, this was intimidating but tolerable. For Anthony Quinn, it was intolerable. Quinn was not just an actor for hire. He was an artist who demanded to shape his characters from the inside out. He believed in emotional truth, in digging deep into the psychology of a role. That meant flexibility, improvisation, and input. But with Preminger, there was no room for negotiation. Every line, every gesture, every pause had to be done his way. And when Quinn pushed back, sparks flew. One of their most infamous clashes came during the production of The Man with the Golden Arm in 1955. Quinn, cast in a supporting role, wanted to bring nuance and vulnerability to his character. Preminger dismissed his suggestions outright. According to crew members, heated arguments erupted when Quinn insisted on changing his delivery, only for Preminger to shut him down in front of the cast. Quinn saw it as humiliation. Preminger saw it as maintaining control. The set became a battlefield of wills. Actor versus director, passion versus authority. Their feud didn't end there. On later projects, the same cycle repeated. Quinn's fiery nature clashed with Preminger's cold precision. Where Preminger demanded obedience, Quinn demanded authenticity. Neither man was willing to compromise, and their creative wars often slowed production and unsettled the cast around them. Yet ironically, the tension sometimes gave rise to extraordinary performances. Quinn poured his frustration into his roles, channeling real-life conflict into raw on-screen power. This rivalry wasn't just personal. It symbolized a larger struggle in Hollywood. Who controls the story? Is it the director's vision or the actor's truth? With Quinn and Preminger, the answer was never simple, and neither man ever truly won. But if Preminger represented the tyranny of control, Quinn's next feud was more subtle, more personal, a clash not of authority, but of fame itself. His Cold War with Frank Sinatra revealed just how much Quinn resented Hollywood's obsession with celebrity over artistry. Anthony Quinn's final grudge wasn't with a co-star who shared the screen or a director who tried to control him. It was with a man who represented something far bigger, the power of celebrity. Frank Sinatra wasn't just an actor, he was a cultural phenomenon. From his early days as a swooning crooner to his rise as a movie star and leader of the Rat Pack, Sinatra blended music, film, and lifestyle into one irresistible brand. To millions, he was the definition of cool. But to Anthony Quinn, Sinatra embodied everything he despised about Hollywood's obsession with image over substance. The clash between the two wasn't as explosive or public as Quinn's battles with Brando or Wayne, but insiders say the tension was always there. Quinn approached acting like a sacred craft, pouring himself into roles with intensity and discipline. Sinatra, by contrast, moved fluidly between singing, acting, and holding court in Vegas casinos. His charisma won him roles, his connections opened doors, and his carefully curated image kept him untouchable. To Quinn, this felt hollow, a shortcut to stardom that devalued the sacrifices of true actors. Reports from Hollywood parties and industry gatherings painted a picture of cool politeness masking quiet hostility. Sinatra reportedly dismissed Quinn as too serious, while Quinn saw Sinatra as more interested in power and social clout than in artistic depth. When their paths crossed at award shows or on projects, the air was frosty. They weren't shouting matches or tabloid scandals, just sharp looks, clipped words, and the unmistakable sense of rivalry. One of the key points of friction was control. Sinatra, with his immense influence, often shaped his projects to suit his image, surrounding himself with all eyes and demanding final say. Quinn, who fought directors like Preminger for artistic freedom, bristled at Sinatra's effortless dominance. To him, it symbolized Hollywood's shift away from craft and towards celebrity culture, a shift that left dedicated actors like him in the shadows. Yet, as always, there was begrudging respect. Quinn could never deny Sinatra's magnetic presence, and Sinatra, in turn, recognized Quinn's artistry, even if their worlds would never truly align. Together with Brando, Wayne, Taylor, and Preminger, Sinatra completed the list of 5 names that Anthony Quinn carried with him until the very end. And with that confession, Quinn revealed something far bigger than a few personal feuds. He exposed the darker reality behind Hollywood's golden years. Anthony Quinn's final confessions peeled back the polished surface of Hollywood's golden age and exposed a reality far less glamorous. By naming Marlon Brando, John Wayne, Elizabeth Taylor, Otto Preminger, and Frank Sinatra, he wasn't just settling old scores. He was revealing how brutal and unforgiving the industry could be behind the scenes. These weren't minor disagreements that faded with time. They were rivalries that spanned decades, fueled by clashing egos, creative battles, and a constant struggle for dominance in a town that thrived on competition. To the public, these stars seemed untouchable, perfect icons who embodied beauty, charisma, and larger-than-life heroism. But Quinn's grudges remind us that behind the lights and champagne, Hollywood was a battlefield. Friendships could mask bitter rivalries. Collaborations could hide resentment. And success often came at the cost of respect, integrity, and peace of mind. In many ways, Quinn's list of enemies tells us more about him than it does about them. He was a man who valued discipline, authenticity, and artistry above all else. When he saw arrogance in Brando, rigidity in Wayne, dominance in Preminger, or celebrity over substance in Sinatra, it wasn't just professional irritation. It was personal. Each name on his list stood for something that violated his principles. Even Elizabeth Taylor, dazzling and disciplined, became a rival when her meticulous control clashed with his fiery spontaneity. What makes these revelations so powerful is the timing. Quinn could have stayed silent, as so many actors do, preserving Hollywood's image of camaraderie. Instead, he chose honesty, even if it painted him as bitter. That honesty, however, gives us something rare, a glimpse of truth from someone who had lived through it all. He confirmed what many suspected but few dared to say, that Hollywood's golden age was just as toxic, competitive, and unforgiving as it was glamorous. So what do you think? Was Quinn justified in naming these 5 legends, or was he simply airing grudges he carried to the grave? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed uncovering this hidden side of Hollywood, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because the golden age may be over, but its secrets are still waiting to be revealed.